Too hot for TV.
Welcome back to Doctor Who Too Hot for TV. We are the podcast that looks at all things Doctor Who Extended Universe. Today, I've got a brand new guest who's not been here before. It's Chris Hogben. Chris, how are you?
I'm really good, Dylan. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful, thanks. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
That's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Excellent. So, before we get into what we're covering today, I always ask my new guests how they became a Doctor Who fan. So how did you become a Doctor Who fan?
I was a child in the 80s and we had a VHS player and my dad bought me 3 VHS videos. 1 was Steptoe and Son, 2 was Thundercats Ho the Movie, and the 3rd one was Death to the Daleks, the heavily edited one that they first released.
Excellent.
I've watched Death to the Daleks to death, 100 times, and from that, every time a new VHS came out, it was my thing. I started watching the TV series. I think Colin was still the Doctor at the time, or it sort of blends into the McCoy beginning, but after that point I never missed an episode. Dragged my parents around to every bookshop, every town that we went to try and find more Doctor Who stuff. I bought the Discovery magazines, Doctor Who Discovers, had the quiz book. When you're obsessive with the Doctor Who fan, when you're reading the program guide, so you understand the stories and you're learning all this stuff behind the scene. But it was literally, it's been since I was probably about 8, 9, 10. It's been an absolute passion of mine, and it's my comfort TV program.
I have to ask, what's your fandom for Steptoe and Son and Thundercats like these days?
Thundercats, it comes and goes. Steptoe and Son, when it's on, I will watch it, but it's not on very much at the moment. So.
No, it is that magical thing of, kids nowadays, and I'm going to sound like an old man, will not find this relatable, but whatever videos you had in your house, that was your access to anything that wasn't live television. So you would discover bits of programs sort of piecemeal, and it was, it's a really interesting way to discover things that people just don't have now.
I was at that age where I kept on thinking, do we have to take these back to the video library? Because when we first got these VHSs, I was at that point where I thought everything had to go back to the video library. I didn't know you could actually own actual TV programs. If you see my Doctor Who collection, you'll now know that I've made up for it since. But.
Brilliant. And so, sort of shortly after you get into Doctor Who finishes and goes off into the wilderness. So what was your relationship like with the media of the spin-off media of the 90s, first of all?
The spin-off media of the 90s, it didn't really affect me. So I think for me, the Target books was a major thing. Where I lived locally, we had a shop that was selling lots of Doctor Who stuff. And although I would buy a couple of I think I bought one of the unit stories, but all I kept on doing was, well, why is the Doctor not turning up? I know I was old enough to understand why the Doctor wasn't there, but at the same point, I couldn't quite fall in love with it. Books, the New Adventures, I found them a little bit old for me at the time, just with my reading style, jumping from the Target novelizations to the New Adventures. There were a couple that I really enjoyed, but I found it a bit of a struggle. And then probably it was when the BBC book comes out, after obviously the Paul McGann movie, that I bought those books religiously. And I liked even the most awful of the awful. I love the Eight Doctors, it was suddenly, it felt like it was the bridge that I'd been looking for from the Target books. Don't get me wrong, there are some of the new adventures that I absolutely love. The vampire ones, most of them with Benny. I thought Benny was an incredible character and these type of things. But I sort of in my head, it was getting in the fictions. I had the Dapple toys, obviously what kid doesn't need disco glitter Daleks in their lives at that point? And I think for my 11th birthday, I got the five-sided TARDIS console set,
Brilliant.
which has been very much lost to time now.
Oh, that's a shame. Yeah, I'm a big Dapple fan here, so it's a relatable experience. I think you and me are a similar age of being slightly too young for the prose style of the new adventures, but I think a thing happens just as we're aging up. The Eighth Doctor books also aged down a little bit to start with, so I was the same. I plowed through. I didn't get through all of them, but I think certainly the first sort of 10, 15, I bought them monthly and was able to read them and sort of consume them in that way.
Yeah, I think, at the time, there wasn't the internet really. For me, obviously, I am a lot older than you, Dylan. I'd love to pretend I'm not, but for me, it was it was almost this hunt of getting the Doctor Who stuff because it was so rare. I mean, I was trying to then the VHSs were coming out, and then you're hearing the background stories behind the stories, stuff that you didn't know before if you weren't buying the magazines or learning all the stuff religiously. So I think fandom, it's like a tiered wedding cake. You have your base level and then you gradually decide what goes on top of it. And that's how you create your own fandom.
That's a great way to look at it because I think the 90s was probably the last time you could conceivably, and you'd have to be very rich, sort of collect and consume it all. Because you are talking 2 books a month, a comic strip, and a few other sort of items. But by the time you get to the end of the 90s and Big Finish launch and becomes more expansive, it just becomes impossible. But as you say, you still have to build the wedding cake normal people because you just, especially if you're in your teens or your early 20s, you're not really going to be able to afford to buy all these things that are coming out in the 90s.
Well, as I said, also, I think this is the same thing for a lot of fans. I think I've said this before. It's such a personal experience, your Doctor Who journey, whatever you're in, because it's always you in front of the media and it's a personal one-on-one thing. It's only the last couple of years that I've really started going out to different Doctor Who events and meeting other fans because, up to now, it's literally just been that relationship between me and the telly, me and the book. And it's something that I haven't had a chance to share for before. And it opens everything up. But I think for most fans of that age, it's such a one-on-one thing because it's not like where Doctor Who was. I know it's hard to believe now. It was very uncool at the time.
Yeah.
You didn't really get a chance to wear your "I love Doctor Who" badges out in public and be welcome for it.
Absolutely. I had exactly the same experience. My brother was into Doctor Who, and then you'd meet the odd random person that was into Doctor Who. I've got a friend called Nigel who I've known for many, many years, but we saw Nigel once a year. It's only since doing this podcast, which started nearly 5 years ago now, that I've started to meet loads of Doctor Who podcasters and beyond, just loads of other Doctor Who fans. And if I did go to Doctor Who events before that, if I was by myself, then I would probably, I might have a conversation with somebody for 10 minutes in a queue or something, but it was hardly like meeting somebody that you'd then jump on a podcast with or see it the next time you're at the thing. So it's the 90s fandom experience, I think, is a very solitary one in many ways.
And also the classic, the TV series was dead.
Yeah.
And so there was a finite amount of material you could see. So where we've now got this ever expanding universe, at the time it was literally that, there was like an end of the funnel that you were trying to learn everything about and, sort of try and consume eventually.
Absolutely. So what's your relationship with spin-off media like these days? Because there's a lot of it.
I feel I have bankrolled Big Finish for the last few years. For me, it was never. It's a recent thing. I've started to get more into the interview side and listening to the actual cast members.
Mm.
But for me, it's always been about the stories. So for me, my spin-off material is always it's story based. So, as I mentioned, the reading, Big Finish, incredibly so. And now I'm going back and now I'm discovering interviews that people have put on there with, actors and actresses that I would have loved to have met, but I would have been too shy to even say, I'd have been in the room and it's like, oh my God, it's Peter Purvis and, could not make eye contact or something like that. And I kind of wish, the Mythmaker stuff, I really want to start trying to listen a little bit more to. I know that's one of your not
Areas
passion
of
projects,
expertise.
areas of expertise, but you have this whole thing. But I think I mentioned to you before, I love finding Doctor Who in random places in spin-off. I mentioned with Marvel Comics having the Avengers in the UK set with Who as the organization led by an Alistair Stewart, which was obviously a direct homage to Doctor Who. I watched Alien Prometheus, the Alien prequel.
Yeah.
And when one of the lead actresses in that is the head scientist woman is called Liz Shaw, you sort of feel that the Doctor Who fans are now out there and they're permeating into real life, and there's just lovely little hints and things you can find.
I love stuff like that. When we first met many years ago, it was at a Doctor Who quiz at the BFI.
Yes.
I remember you telling me that about your love for Big Finish. So I'm assuming you haven't heard everything they've done, but you certainly consume a fair amount of it.
I did probably up to 2 years ago. There wasn't a monthly release, mainly for the Doctor Who and the Doctor Who spin-offs that I'd missed out on. The last couple of years, due to some financial constraints, I can't buy everything, and I it feels bad to say this, but I was getting the little thing of diminishing returns with what I was purchasing. But I absolutely love the range, and I love the life it's given to the actor. I had a look when the Big Finish app went down because I wanted to make sure that I'd backed up everything. I had over nearly 1,200 Big Finish audios that I have gone and I've listened to all of them. It's not like I've got stuff in the bucket. What I have bought, I have listened to, I've consumed, and I've listened to all the interviews with this, with the actors cast, and I think their throughput has been phenomenal, and they, for me, have carried the flag of Doctor Who, and makes me appreciate the new series because when you're dealing with spin-off material like the Big Finish stuff, the most wonderful thing is 1 week you can be dealing with Peter Davison. The next week you can have Tom Baker doing a story. And like when the original VHS it's very choppy and they'll do anything with their stories. Some are fantasy, some are hard sci-fi. So when the new series comes back and people have stronger series, weaker series when you're watching Doctor Who, because I have listened to all these different things, I'm always one that let's give it a chance. Let's see where the story actually takes us. And I think it's made me more open to changes in the series and what they decide to do. And I can see homages to different things in it.
Absolutely. I definitely listened to all of the Big Finish that was Doctor Who related up until about 2014. And I've been a lot more selective since then. Just through where I was in my life, I had a lot more spare time at that point, and I did a full listen through at some point. The main range I stayed on top of pretty much consistently, but then the sort of spin-off stuff I caught up with and did this full listen through. But then I just sort of fell off of it eventually, and I've never, there's now too much there to, I think, ever try and pick it back up.
For me, the main range for Big Finish was the absolute spine of the stuff. When you're buying box sets, it's more of a contained media thing, so you don't need where you have with the box set. You when you're doing the main range, there can be throwaway comments in a Sixth Doctor story that pays off in a Seventh Doctor tale.
Yeah,
and that's why I thought the main range works so well for Big Finish. But then since they've been doing the box sets, I have struggled. But as I said, I've listened to Gallifrey, I've listened to Countermeasures, all of the different unit spin-offs, the the War Master stuff, just because I think Derek Jacobi has to be listened to. If he's prepared to do Big Finish, I'm prepared to sit with him while he goes through it. Anything that's clever. When David Tennant decided to come back and do the audios as the 10th Doctor during, the COVID times, which he was doing, suddenly his throughput was incredible. It reminded me why I liked him so much as the Doctor. So, and there was some incredible, if anyone ever listens to the 10th Doctor stuff, if you see anything with my favorite Big Finish person, which is Roy Gill, I love his stories and everything else like that. He did this wonderful story called The Creeping Death for the 10th Doctor and Donna. And that is kind of now my benchmark that I go to when I'm comparing other audio adventures to, because I just got, for 50 minutes, I just got carried away in an episode and I blinked and the episode was over because I was enjoying it so much. And that's when I think, you've got something good that you're listening to.
Yeah, he is a great writer. He wrote one of my favourite Ninth Doctor ones as well, The Way of the Berryman.
Yes, I've listened to that. Oh, he got the voice and tone of the Ninth Doctor range. There was the Ninth Doctor range that sort of killed off my love for the Big Finish. I thought the first box set was awful, and I'd been so enthusiastic about seeing this Doctor coming back, and I bought the first 4 releases straight away, and then I listened to the first story, which was just an audio mess in my ear, and I couldn't do this. And then suddenly to hear the difference between Christopher Eccleston doing that, and then he did a Macbeth episode, which is when you delve into the history and discover about Lady Macbeth. Incredible. You could really feel the passion, and also Old Soldiers.
Yeah.
Again with the Brigadier, and I thought that again shows the versatility of the range.
Absolutely. And I'm exactly the same as you. I heard that first Eccleston box set, and we've covered it on here, and I just thought it was trash, to be perfectly honest. And I was put off the range. But then, a couple of people said, oh, you should try this one. And I wanted to hear him with the Brigadier and stuff. And so all of a sudden, and I was like, oh, this isn't just throwing those elements together. Like, it's a really, really smart script and a really, just a fun Doctor Who adventure that's got scares and emotional beats, and it just all works.
Yeah, that's what you want. I'm on something that I learn stuff about. I mean, when Big Finish teaches you something new about a historical event that you've never heard of before, the Peterloo Massacre, I'd never heard it, never studied it, and I, to my shame, I didn't know anything about it. And I listened to a historical Fifth Doctor adventure in that, which again is one of my absolute favorite audio pieces. And I was so bloody angry at the end of this about what these people had to go through.
Yeah.
And I thought that's when you've got something, tangible and on your fingertips, exciting, that the show, could do. I could like the silly stuff as well.
Yeah.
But when you suddenly get something that just blows your socks off, it's incredible.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell the listeners what you've chosen to talk about today?
I am choosing for my topic today a range that is good in places, but this box set was absolutely exceptional for me. And it's from the Diary of River Song, which is obviously one of the many spin-offs from New Who. And the one I've chosen is New Recruit, which is a collection of 4 stories that set the character of River Song, as played by Alex Kingston, in the time of the end of season 7 Pertwee. So obviously, I in my head, when I'm listening to these sets follow quite nicely on from Inferno, and it starts to bridge the gap about what potentially happened towards with Liz and the Third Doctor, and it starts to develop Liz moving away from UNIT and that serious science fiction that season 7 in Doctor Who classic series is like no other.
Absolutely.
It's more like an IT, the ITV drama. It's more like professionals, heavy sci-fi, and no other series is like it. And I think these stories absolutely exemplify that era. And they're just a little bit different.
Excellent. So, were you a fan of River on the TV series?
Like with anything, there are some fantastic river stories. There are some lesser river stories, but you can't say that when she's on the screen, you don't know that she's there, and
Yeah.
she can lift a drab story up a notch just by being engaging. I still think her and Peter Capaldi in the Husbands of River song, the Christmas special.
Yeah.
I still get emotional listening to, I'll cry at the drop of a hat. But I thought it was the first time I actually believed the romance. And also when her first appearance, the library one, I thought was incredible as well. So I know obviously River, I've watched all the stuff that she did with Matt Smith as well, with varying degrees of success. I love the twist with Rory and Amy being her parents. I know all of this type of thing. But I was hoping that Big Finish would take this two-dimensional character and be able to flesh her out in a way that they've been able to do with other characters.
Excellent. I am a River fan. Series 6 is one of my favourite runs of New Doctor Who. I kind of think that as much as the Capaldi relationship is good, I kind of feel like they should have left her there at that point in a way.
Yeah.
But I as you say, she lights up the screen whenever she's on it. So I'm just, and I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I totally. Please don't think I'm dissing River, because I do love her. But
I know. Yeah.
it's just that thing that I think she was fantastic, as you said, in season 6. But then when they were using her again, it was just like, oh, let's bring River into this story, which wasn't a natural fit for her. And I think she needed a bit of freshening up. And I think if you're going to end the character, linking it straight back to the library one, that is exactly what you need to do.
Exactly. So the Diary of Riversong, New Recruit, was released on the 27th of October 2021. It was written by Lizbeth Myles, James Kettle, Helen Goldwyn, and Lisa McMullin. News at the time, it was announced that there was going to be a Doctor Who tour called Worlds of Wonder. And the big news was that Russell T Davies was returning to Doctor Who to take over production once more. Releases at the time, bear with me, because there's quite a few of these. From BBV, we had Faction Paradox, Me and My Ghost, the Probe audiobook Broken Bonds, and the other Faction Paradox, The Confessions of Brother Signet. Elsewhere, we had The Collection, Season 23, Standard Edition on Blu-ray. Then from BBC audiobooks, we had The Ashes of Eternity 9 and Rose, as well as The Power of Kroll audiobook. And we had the book The Wintertime Paradox Anthology. Then from Big Finish, we had the audiobook version of The Two Jasons, Dalek Universe 3, The Third Doctor Adventures Volume 8, Torchwood Ashton, and Torchwood The Great Sontaran War. Elsewhere, we had Build High for Happiness from Cutaway Comics. The comic strip was The Forest Bride featuring 13 and Yaz. And on television, The Halloween Apocalypse, Doctor Who Flux had just launched. What a time to be alive.
It was Doctor Who boom time, as Dylan can see, which obviously no one else can. I absolutely love Flux as well. So it was just literally, for me at that point, Doctor Who was on an absolute high.
Agreed. I mean, I didn't get the BBV stuff because I tend not to be into their later stuff, but we had a season 23, so we had a great Blu-ray box set, some great Big Finish releases there. That Dalek Universe one was a corker. The Third Doctor Adventures are always worth a listen. Build High for Happiness from Cutaway Comics. I just love their spin-off comics. And yeah, I'm a big Flux fan. So I would say it's easy for releases to get lost in that time because there's so much going on.
Yeah. And also with the River sets, the quality of them is not always apparent all the way through. Obviously, the first thing they were trying to do when these sets came out was pairing her with previous Doctors, which sometimes worked very well. Other times it did feel like she was just being crowbarred in. And then at the end of the story, there's a kiss with memory wipe. The poor Doctor must be suffering some sort of mental thing by the time he finally meets her, because his mind's been wiped about her so many times. But this, for me, was the high. I've listened to the whole of the River series, And for me, this was my personal favourite.
Too hot for TV.
With the Doctor away, Liz Shaw finds herself working with a new scientific advisor at UNIT, Riversong, who came recommended by the Doctor. Together, they investigate mysterious goings-on in an English village and discover deaths, buried artefacts and a killer dog. They realise the artefacts are alien and have been keeping an archaeologist alive for thousands of years, eventually turning her into a monster which the Brigadier shoots.
Too hot for TV.
So, the first one is called The Blood Woods by Lizbeth Myles. So we talked before about how much sort of the River stuff you've heard on audio. I'd not heard this one before, but I probably got the River Song box sets up until the point where they did that box set where they dropped her into classic stories, and that was just a little bit too much for me.
Yes.
I didn't mind the box set they did with her and Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy. And there was one where it was just her on an island with a family and an android daughter or something like that.
Played by Alex Kingston's actual daughter.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Yes.
And actually, like, I found of those earlier ones, it was the ones that weren't bringing Tom Baker in or whatever that were actually the more interesting, where she's the lead character, because she is the lead character in the ones with the Doctor, but you're just waiting for the Doctor to show up.
Yeah, and sort it all out. I think this is why I love these stories so much. It's because you have, instead of the Doctor character, you have Liz, you have River showing exactly what she would do in these stories. And she's not the Doctor.
Yeah.
She's always got she's got the River agenda all the way through. And no matter how good she is as a character, she's always playing by her own rules, which I think works brilliantly.
She's got a similar moral compass to the Doctor, but she is more ruthless in places.
Yes. And she'll choose how she reacts to things. And there is an alienness to her, as well as a lot of humanity as well, which I think Alex Kingston plays beautifully. She has that night and day aspect to her.
Absolutely. And in this first story particularly, what do you think of her sort of infiltration of UNIT?
It just shows, it reminds, in the 70s, you're not updating all computer files. She's got in there because the Brigadier has received a phone call from the Doctor recommending this recruit while he goes off and does something time related, off on his own adventure somewhere else.
It's something with the Sensorites he's off doing, isn't it?
It's the Sensorites. There's something there, and the Sensorites are on Earth at this time. So the Doctor goes on a wild Sensorite chase across the globe. And while he is indisposed, the Brigadier needs someone to take the Doctor's role. It's got this wonderful juxtaposition of Liz's nose being put firmly out of joint, that the Brigadier doesn't feel that she is up to it, and that this woman River has got in who's blagged it. She's completely blagged it. She's put a file on her desk sending all her qualifications over, and it makes her look as though she's overqualified for the role. It's just the way that the Brigadier has been completely bamboozled by Alex Kingston's character, and he doesn't know quite how to react to it. All he knows is that the Doctor trusts her.
Absolutely.
And we don't actually know if it is the Doctor that trusts her or if it is something else going on.
And so we mentioned before about River meeting various characters from Doctor Who's past and perhaps them not working quite as well. How do you think the interaction works here? Because I must confess, from a sort of just looking at the cover, I was like, oh, well, of course she meets the third Doctor and the Brigadier and Liz. But keeping my powder dry no longer, I really loved this box set. So how do you feel that these interactions worked?
It works better. And this is kind of where I wish the River box sets had gone. You've got her team, her relationship. She works, she can control the Brigadier better than the Doctor can. She knows how to manipulate him and get what she needs out of it. The relationship, especially in this first box set, with the brilliant Daisy Ashcroft as Liz Shaw, who just deserves all the praise for carrying her mother's character the way that she has. that spikiness at the beginning where Liz is really angry at River and pretending not to be. It's a wonderful power play between the two of them,
Yeah.
trying to work out if they're going to get on. And by the end of the story, you get a real bond of family from the two of them. We do know that Big Finish love to do a spin-off series. If they suddenly announced that they were going to do a Liz and River box set, I would be buying it tomorrow without even having to think about it if
Agreed.
they had the quality of this, because I think Lizbeth Myles here especially has really locked into something that is fantastic.
Well, speaking of Elizabeth Myles, what do you think of her script? Is it a good opener to the set? Because for me, it works. It's the sort of story you can tell without the Doctor. It's not Invasion of the Daleks number 407 that the Doctor needs to show at the end. It's sort of like, for want of a better word, sort of X-Filesy. It can be solved within the realms of Earth, I think.
For me, I thought it was a very clever opener for it. It was the demons with hard science
Yeah.
rather than, that relationship with the Doctor and Joe. When River and Liz are sent off they go off and investigate this town, which is where this all of these things happen. It's so clever that I feel that there's danger. I don't know that River can get them out of the situation the same way the Doctor can.
Yeah.
Because she's playing against her own agenda, and you don't know quite which side she's falling on. Is this something that she was, is this the reason that she's on Earth in the first place, to get involved with this story? Why is she there? What is she doing? And I think it's just and as I said, again, Daisy Ashcroft plays Liz impeccably through this, and she plays that character. She suddenly hasn't developed a kung fu style, a kung fu fighting style that she could deploy at a moment. They're genuine people trying to uncover the whole mystery of what is going on, and again, it's, who do you trust? Is it the wealthy landowner? Is it the archaeologist who keeps on being kicked off her site because it gets too near the boundary? And there's no sonic screwdriver. And the people in the pub, I feel genuinely scared and intimidated. I can feel the tension in the story as they go into and deal with people. They're not surrounded by loads of soldiers. They're having to investigate and not upset the locals around them. And for a 50-minute opener, I think it really sets up whatever happens next. This is a great way to begin.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the recasting of Liz Shaw, obviously, and I think you're right. She does do a great job. I'm always taken out by recastings the first time I hear them. So whatever set it was that Daisy first appeared in that role, for about 20 minutes, I was like, oh, I'm not sure. And then you just sort of fall into it. And now she is the voice of Liz Shaw. I think she does a good thing of conveying the character without it being like she's an actor playing a role that someone's played before that happened to have been her mom. But it's not like I'm just imitating this person.
Yeah, it's an actor playing a role. I mean, the way people always say about, what about recasting? What do you think of it? I like Sherlock Holmes stories. And that is one character played in a multiple different ways by different actors, each seeing something from the source. I feel she really gets the beats of Liz. Forget it's her mother. She's there because she's a good actress. And the warmth that she gives Liz, who could always be a little bit, Liz never really let her guard down.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the story, I actually felt she was actually lowering some of her defenses. And I think she was enjoying having a female friend, which she didn't get in that season 7, because it's such a male dominated season. I just love it. So,
and it's also that thing of Liz during the time it's set, she's a woman that's moved very far in her career and also doesn't want to be there. She's been drafted in by the Brigadier. And as you say, she's this woman in this man's world. And then there's just that moment at the end of Inferno where, like, right at the end, where they're all laughing and you're like, oh, so she feels part of the family. They've lightened up. And then the next season, it's Joe Grant. And I wouldn't change Joe Grant for anything. But at the same time, you wish there'd been another little season in between, don't you?
or just that, just a bridging episode using the Avengers vernacular. You had a lovely scene between, Tara King and Emma Peel,
Yeah,
and it was just, I just wish they'd have been able. Obviously, 70s TV was a completely different beast anyway, but if there'd just been like a little handover, or, oh, this is where Liz has gone to, this is the reason she had to leave. But we never really got that. So this is why I love this season as well, because it shows what could have been, or
yeah,
what was happening before we get to Terror of the Autons.
absolutely. And what do we think of the recast Nicholas Courtney, Brigadier, played by John Coleshaw?
It's a very good impression. I think Nicholas Courtney, you couldn't really. He's been copied here.
Mm,
He's got the mannerisms down, but he doesn't take me out of the story, because I've heard him in so many different audio adventures now, and I've got used to John Coleshaw's version of it. But I think because it's too much of a carbon copy,
yeah.
it's the opposite of Daisy Ashcroft, who actually has crafted her own version playing the role,
Mm.
where the Brigadier is, he's doing a Brigadier impersonation and reading the lines.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think it works because the Brig's very much a support character in these things, and he's the gung-ho version of the what the blazes is that sort of thing, rather than I wonder whether if you try to do a real deep character study, and maybe they've done it, but on one of them that I haven't heard, but like an episode that was focused around the Brig's character, whether the John Coleshaw impression would suffer because of that, in a way that it kind of works in the support role.
There was a Third Doctor adventure, which I can't remember too much about it, but I just remember the Brigadier and the unit guys were on an alien planet, and they had the Brigadier getting the people to stand up against the oppressors.
Mm.
And I was just like, no, this wouldn't have. It took me out of the story a little bit, because it wasn't that supporting role. It was
Yeah,
making him the man who
right
was
to the
going
front.
to lead. Yeah, which I didn't think worked so well. But that's a
Right.
personal opinion.
Is there anything else you want to say on this first one before we move on to the next one?
No, the only thing, as I said, you can feel that those little bleeds to the demons, I think, comes across that quaint English village,
Yeah,
cut off from the rest of it, not too heavily involved with unit. It's if you're a lover of 70s TV or 70s slight horror films, this will work for you. It's really cleverly done. And as I said, it's a story that didn't need the Doctor to turn up, which is why I think it works so well.
absolutely. It's beautifully atmospheric. And as you say, it delves into the folk horror that was so prevalent at the time in Doctor Who and other things. I mean, I used the X-Files analogy earlier, but it perhaps could be a later episode of Out of the Unknown or Thriller, or, not too far from something like Children of the Stones or something like that.
Exactly that. But it doesn't have any gratuitous horror in. So it's of keeping of the time as well. So,
Yeah.
they could have had, like, people have been decapitated or things like that. It's very cleverly done.
Too hot for TV.
Liz moves to a suburban utopia, the perfect community, but when she stops coming to work, River comes to investigate. There is a wild lion on the loose. All the lawns are mowed, but there is a petrol crisis, and there are lots of inactive freezers. It turns out the suburban paradise is host to an alien dining club who feed on mental energy, with the aliens luring Liz to capture River and feed off her, but the lion is set loose on the aliens and feeds on them.
Too hot for TV.
So the next story in this box set is Terror of the Suburbs by James Kettle. Now, hands down, this is my favourite one of the box set.
It is incredible. It is as camp as tits. It really is so fun. What are you going to do? You're going to have Liz Shaw stuck in basically Abigail's party, waiting for River to turn up because suburbia has gone bonkers. I haven't heard anything by James Kettle before, but God, is this good? It is so different to the first. It's not a rinse and repeat of the first story.
Yeah.
It's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's got the whole, again, it's that very 70s suburbia that would have been prevalent, this could have been Tooting. It could have been, it was just so cleverly done. And the monsters, and, you've got suburbia, and there's a lion wandering around for no apparent reason. This is where I think Big Finish does well, when something takes you. This isn't something you'd have seen on the television. This is a different type of storytelling completely, and it works. God, does it work? The characterization, people are paying caricatures of the time, but it just works beautifully. I'm dying to hear what you think of this one.
I can only echo your thoughts, and it's interesting you say, my notes here say caricatures of the time, because they are recognizable whether you lived in that time. But if you've seen any old films or television, all of these characters sort of exist in varying forms in sort of different programs. And just to plonk them into Doctor Who and give us this mysterious background of like, nobody wants to leave and nobody can quite remember why they want to leave, but they're all down the tennis club or whatever it is, and they're all having the best party in town. It's a riot. It's that sort of post-war, we live in a society where, everything's going really well, and haven't we done well, and we bought our house for £5,000 and it's got 6 bedrooms and the perfect lawn and everything. And it's just, it paints such an image in your mind of this suburban place that is so recognizable.
And the setup, as I mentioned, I definitely felt the homage to Abigail's Party in this, but I could also see things like Terry and June. That really dates me. It's just that suburban, idealized life that the 70s seem to spend a lot of time aspiring to. You've got the good life, you've got things like that, and everyone has conformed in this town. You can't quite work out what is going on. River's there to try and help her friend which is Liz, who's been missing for months, this or weeks. I can't quite remember the exact time period. And as you said, there's the golf course part where everyone's going off to play golf and no one can leave. She's trying to be gentle to get Liz out, but without damaging her mind. She's having to play it very carefully. And yeah, it's just cleverly done. Nothing like this I've heard before in a Doctor Who context.
Me too. And it's very clever. And the fact that the refrigerators are essentially the menace is just one of those Doctor Who ideas. And it's not Attack of the Killer Refrigerators or anything, but it just works as part of this setup that gets weirder and weirder and weirder as you go along.
But it never goes farcical.
Yeah.
It builds up very slowly. But again, as it gets creepier towards the end, it never loses the tone of the whole story. It's the music is, whoever did the scoring for this got it spot on. They knew exactly what was going on, and it really enhances the story.
How has the interaction and relationship between Liz and River developed over the course of this one? Because as you say, it's River that goes to get her, essentially.
She's worried about her friend. She's actually, from the hostility and getting to know each other of the first story, this is River worried about her friend and wanting to see what has happened to her. Why is she behaving in a way that River doesn't understand? How can she help? Where is she? And the town is, you think it's going to be in the suburbs in the UK, and then you discover it's in Sierra Leone, and it's taken them a while to be able to find her and all of these other people that they've been kidnapped from their day jobs, and they're having to live this suburban paradise but suburban nightmare at the same time.
And what do you think of the villains of the piece?
Again, who doesn't love a camp villain in Doctor? You've got the two bad guys who are, sort of leading the charge. You've got this wonderful gelatinous monster who I sort of, in my mind, picked like the not the gel guards from the Three Doctors, but the pink jelly of when they open up the antimatter stuff.
Yeah,
I had that sort of a green version of that in my head, because it's, when I listen to these stories, they paint pictures. Yeah. And I try and cast. I try and predict what I think everyone looks like and how it goes. And I thought it was good. And the Russian shot putters. There are these two women that walk around who are just completely bemused, and they just hate everyone. So it's down to Western decadence. It's pure 70s. It really is.
And the tone of it, like you've used the word camp a few times, which is exactly right. But the last story I could see fitting directly into season 7. This one feels like it's sort of more although there's a sort of serious tone to sort of the threat. It feels a little bit more series 8, series 9, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think Liz is away from unit. There isn't really a unit presence that I can really remember in this
No,
story. I might be wrong.
I think there's like a phone call at some
But
point, and that's about it.
and because of that, it's two female characters who have a respect for each other, looking out for each other. And I don't know what else James Kettle has written for Big Finish, but it's now a name that I'm really going to look out for when I'm choosing which next audios that I want to buy. Because if he can do something like this with two characters, if he decided to write a whole series, I would be there, all of these.
Absolutely. It's one of the things Joe Ford often says is that these spin-offs are sometimes more interesting because they try out new writers in these ranges before sort of letting them leash on the doctors and stuff. And I think James Kettle is exactly the sort of person, as you said, that you go, well, there's one to watch and see
Yeah,
what else he does.
because now I'm not going to keep using adjectives of why I like this. I love a little bit of a camp fun, and I'm just picturing this as a season, and it's just a little bit of a sorbet in between, the starter and the main course.
Indeed.
Too hot for TV.
Investigating a dead body at a university, Liz and River find many of the students there are missing too. It turns out the students are caught up in a scheme from a technology company called Interaxia, who appear to be implanting alien tech in the students. They discover the missing students trapped in a computer game. River goes into the game and encourages the students to think themselves out of it and stops the technology from working.
Too hot for TV.
So the third story is Never Alone by Helen Goldwyn. Now, Helen's a name that's associated with quite a lot of Big Finish. Are you a fan of her work?
I've listened to quite a few of her stuff. I couldn't name anything straight off the top of my head.
She's done a lot of directing, but not as much writing. So I guess it's a name that you were familiar with, and I think I'm familiar with too, because she also appeared in quite a lot of them as an actor. So how does she fare writing rather than directing this time round?
As I said, she has created perfect Third Doctor adventure here. This is a traditional unit against modern science. There's you can tell also it's still got that heavy hard, the hard sci-fi of season 7. It's got the sort of look about it. It reminds me a lot of the Patrick Troughton story, The Invasion.
Yeah.
It's that level of unit. There are scientists that are working, that university graduates that are being taken away, and they show up they're spotted on television, and they're behaving in a slightly different way, different to Terror of the Suburbs and how that approaches it. This is also, it's very suspicious. We've got this gorgeous character in it. There's a young girl who's one of the students, and I cannot remember her name.
So it's Pippa, played by
It's
Emma Swan.
Pippa by Emma Swan, that's it, who just plays this enthusiastic third person into the River Liz dynamic.
Yeah.
And she wants to be a ninja detective like River and Liz, because that's all she can think of, which obviously is the two, that's the only, sort of a Charlie's Angels type thing. I think this one for me also came across, it's a cross between The Invasion and Charlie's Angels, because they're going off to investigate. And it's to do with technology. It's to do with a version of nanotechnology that is helping improve people's lives, but it's being misused by an electronics company.
Yeah.
You can just see we bursting through the doors, telling everyone that they're idiots. But that's not what these two do. They go in. River is just having a ball. She doesn't take it seriously until she takes it seriously.
Yeah.
Until people she knows gets hurt. You've got this idea of insects going under the skin and repairing limbs, but also subverting a little bit of control over people as well. I don't know if this is something that could have really been a 70s trope. I know we've got things like the Bionic Woman and the $6 Million Man,
Yeah.
but I'm not quite sure the idea of, although nanotech was around at that time, would it have been prevalent enough for them to have thought of something like this at the time? That was my only
Yeah.
niggle when I was listening to it.
It felt like perhaps it would have appeared late 70s, early 80s, something like that, if we are trying to sort of squeeze it into the sort of thought process of the writers of the show at the time.
Yeah, I know that that's not always the case with River, but it just felt it was for a later point of the 70s. It wasn't, if you was trying to slot that one in, that's a little, well, it's probably the unit thing going into the 70s and 80s thing that everyone always talks about. And that could be why it got muddled up a little bit. But for me, this one, although the cast are absolutely engaging, it was kind of the weakest one of the season for me. But that's
Agreed.
because the other three stories around it are of a high quality.
Absolutely.
There is a wonderful little thing at the end where there is an 8-bit theme of the River tune that they play at the end of the episode, which is, it's a really nice homage. But then again, when I'm thinking 8-bit themes, again, that is taking me into the 80s,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking sort of more NES time, the Nintendo Entertainment System,
Yeah.
than I am early 70s. So I think it was just a little bit of a mismatch. There was a throwaway line when River is going into the computer to try and rescue Liz and the scientists who've all become absorbed by this like giant intelligence that's there. And she has that foreshadowing of who would want to spend their afterlife in a computer, which obviously,
Yeah.
if everyone knows where River's story starts and finishes, that was a nice throwback. But as I said, if they were doing another box set, say Liz and River in the 1980s, this would have been an absolute perfect fit.
I agree. It's a bit of a, especially when she goes into the computer at the end. Like Doctor Who going into computers in the 70s is walking around a miniscope. We don't think of it as like a hard drive or a cyberspace that can be entered. I mean, cyberspace is quite an outdated term now, but I guess the cloud is essentially what she enters, and that, while it is a perfectly competent script, but because it's so, all the others are so tonally right for the era, to suddenly be in this world, I was just a little bit like, okay, this is good, but get me back to some rural village somewhere or something like that.
Exactly that. And it's so, because obviously you've listened to all these other things and they've put you into the tone, they've put you into the era. As I said, if this was River coming to visit Unit all through the 70s and 80s and keeps on coming back to them and having adventures every time the Doctor disappears for 5 minutes, it would have worked.
Yeah.
But the fact it's River is stuck there, she's there for linear time, she's not popping off every 5 minutes. It just kind of breaks from the rest of the season. But the supporting cast in this is incredible. The female professor, I thought, is absolutely brilliant, over the top. I've had university professors that in a similar way, not that they're kidnapping their students and putting them into a mainframe, but you know what I mean. It just, the actors are playing believable selves.
Yeah.
But there's just something about tonally, it doesn't quite fit with the rest of the box set. And it's a great story, but for me, it just didn't work.
Agreed. Anything else you want to say on that one before we move on to the final bit?
No, let's head to the rivers of light.
Excellent.
Too hot for TV.
When the Doctor returns, he finds River has interfered with the TARDIS she claims to be from the Celestial Intervention Agency, while in a Yorkshire mining town, strange temporal distortions and rivers of light are emanating from the forest. The light appears to be from a box River was transporting, which contains a planet and a sun in an attempt to save them. After the Doctor helps River get the light under control, she wipes his memory and delivers the planet and sun to the Master, who she has been working for, but at the last minute she double-crosses him and hands him over to the Time Lords.
Too hot for TV.
So The Rivers of Light is by Elisa McMullin. Now, obviously, this one features the Doctor, as played by Tim Treloar. How does the Doctor weave into this one, and does it feel like a sort of natural place for the series to go?
I think you've had three stories where you don't get what's advertised on the front cover. You're wanting to see what on earth River's game plan actually is, and you've been desperate to see also how the third Doctor is going to react with his future wife appearing and basically taking up and mucking around with everything in his lab. You're waiting for these two to meet and see how they react to each other, perhaps more than the actual story itself.
And it is that relationship that I think is the best thing. It's a great story, don't get me wrong, but it is that relationship and the fact that this is really one of the few characters that seems to be able to sort of get one up on the Doctor, sort of being funnier and faster and smarter. And I just love their interplay.
Yeah, she calls him out over everything. She knows this, the third Doctor. Trimdalore, I love his interpretation of the third Doctor as well. That's another set I always buy. But the way that the two of them plot, and she sees right through his bluster. She knows exactly how he works, how he operates. Where everyone thinks he knows the plan, and she knows that he's making it up as he goes along, but pretends he doesn't. And he doesn't trust her to start off with. And then Liz tells him that she trusts River with her life. And it's that thing that suddenly makes the third Doctor, I think, because they've gone from being a little, in the first box set where Liz and River were pairing up to each other. They've now reached that point where they have got a really good relationship. And I think the Doctor starts to get jealous of how his friend Liz is playing with this new friend while he's not been there chasing sensorites all around the globe. And he comes back in and he feels quite, they've put his TARDIS console back inside the TARDIS, which is ready for Terror of the Autons. They've talked about the unit protocols as well, I believe, in this story. There's just little things that they've done that sets up the next stages of the Doctor's adventures, with or without Liz, because obviously there's a huge gap, or as far as we know. But their interplay is good, and Tim Treloar and Daisy Ashford are brilliant together. And you then got River, who doesn't step the mark. It's her story with the Doctor as cameo. John Pertwee would never have allowed that. but because it would be his show. But as Tim Treloar does it in such a clever way that he is playing the third Doctor, absolutely, but it's River's show, and they work as a team, and then they're actually dealing with this strange alien and the Sons, and it's all a very complicated and elaborate trap. But who do we know from the Doctor's Billions that love an overly elaborate trap to try and capture the third Doctor? I wonder.
So, as you say, it's setting up certain things for the season 8 to follow. So we do at the end get this cameo by the Master. What did we think of that inclusion?
It's great. It wasn't needed, in my honest opinion, because the rest of the series has been so strong. It was just to discover that the whole reason that River had been sent there was because she'd been working for the Master. And all of this had taken place because she wanted to charge her vortex manipulator, so she needed the Doctor's TARDIS to try and sort out this solution, which is two suns, and she's trying to save a universe in the sun.
Yeah,
and there was a problem that it got diverted to Earth, and if these boxes got opened, it would be the end of everything in the universe. The Master's inclusion, it was unnecessary, and it was a lovely little thing. And I also, this is my, again, personal opinion, John Coleshaw, he's done the Ainley Master and he's done the Delgado Master, and I don't think his Delgado Master characterization is as strong. I think he understands the Ainley Master better, because a couple of times I was like, who are you actually supposed to be?
Yeah. I think it works fine if he's doing an audiobook because it doesn't have to be a perfect sort of interpretation or impersonation. But yeah, it didn't quite work for me.
No, it's a pity because the whole story, the whole idea of this, and then by the end of it, the doctor ends up trusting River. But again, it's mainly to do with, his nose is being completely put out of joint. Liz is going off adventuring. She takes the vortex manipulator rather than traveling with the third Doctor and Bessie.
Yeah.
And he turns up late, about an hour later than everyone else. And you can tell he's just in a bad mood because he had to come up all by himself. And you just know that he's been cursing the whole journey up there, trying to do this.
You mentioned your love for Tim Trelaw's Third Doctor. I just need to echo your sentiments there. Like when I was really unsure that a recast of the Third Doctor would work because John Pertwee's got such a unique voice and just a unique personality and character. But again, it's that thing of he sounds a lot like him and he gets like the right sort of inflections and stuff like that. But he does make the part his own, and I think he does a brilliant job at it.
That's, I've got to say, it's one of the most consistent Big Finish box sets with the writing and everything. And he carries it. And he's worked now with all the three main companions. He's had a Sarah Jane Smith, he's had a Liz Shaw, and obviously he's had quite a few with Joe Grant.
Yeah.
I've listened to the little clips where Joe, because obviously Tim Trelaw's a Welsh actress, and she starts just as he's got the voice because he's got a tape recording that he listens to of John Pertwee before he does his scenes, or he did in the earlier box sets. And then Katie Manning comes over to him in a big Welsh accent and starts trying to gets him to completely lose his shade of thought. So, it's little things like that. But in this story, it is the Third Doctor. He is impeccable. It is setting up what potentially is going to be happening. You've got River then taking the Master, who she's double crossed, to Gallifrey at the end. Again, I still think was sort of unnecessary, but it also builds that relationship up between why the Master has left Gallifrey and why he's got a bit of beef with this version of the Doctor. Well, we kind of know that, but we've seen enough stories, and it just works. But I think the Master it was a strong enough story with the main cast that it
Agreed.
didn't really need this.
Is it a suitable finale for getting the Master bit, like in terms of the story that it delivers?
I think so. I think because it's a full stop on this whole set, and Liz is not the person who's stuck with the Doctor anymore. You can see that she's starting to strike out a lot more on her own. She's making other arrangements. The whole story, it's been, I think, the thing that I love about this set, it's developed the Liz character post season 7 and giving her opportunities that she perhaps wouldn't have had in that season or perhaps even another season, which is, her character develops. She lets her guards down. She gets friends. She investigates on her own. She's scared, but she powers through it, which is without suddenly developing, as I said, new fantastic skills. Was it Sarah Jane Smith? They suddenly ended up. She developed at one point karate skills in one of the spin-offs, which never to me made particular sense. But the way that Liz actually gets a chance to breathe and develop and create her own character. My only thing about this whole set is I didn't want it to end. I want another series with this team because I think whether it's got Tim Trelaw in or it's post when the fourth Doctor's gone and units staggering, I think they could really do something with this team if they play it right.
I agree. I think River and Liz Shaw in a box set on adventures together would make for a great listen. And it sounds like the sort of cynical cash-in that people would mock, but I think the interaction is just perfect.
And the thing is, I think this is what, for me, has been missing with a lot of the River Song box sets. You've got no base for that. With the characters, with River, it's new. It's almost each box set, it's a reset. Where she actually had a team behind her that she could go off and come back to, I think that would have helped the Diary of River Song with a little bit more stability than it kind of had.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, for want of a better word, she sort of needs a companion. And in a lot of those early
Yeah.
box sets in particular, they try and make the Doctor that. And by companion, I don't mean somebody that is in any way lesser. I just mean somebody to bounce off. And I think Liz is the perfect person for that.
Yeah, because she's smart in her own way and they complement each other.
Indeed. So we must rate the entire box set, and we must say whether it's a clanger, a banger, or an average meander. What say you?
Believe it or not, I know this is hard for you to believe. It's an absolute banger for me.
It's an absolute banger from me too. Thank you so much for nominating this, because I've done a couple of sort of less enjoyable big finishes recently. So it was really nice to hear something that's fairly recent that really sort of reminds me why I really like Big Finish. Did you go on to listen to any more of the River Song box sets after this?
I have got, I believe, one more to listen to, but I think I got caught up because it was the River and 10th Doctor ones next that I started listening to.
Right.
And then I'd had a little bit too much River at one point. So I have got, I think, the final box set to listen to. But I mean, I bought the whole series. I was just hoping I would get another one like this one, which, I think is, for me, the highlight of the whole River series that they did.
Excellent. Well, I must dip into some of the others, although there are a couple that I remember not being fantastic. But I will find some other good ones. So, Chris, if people want to find you on the internet, where can they find you?
For the moment, I am still hanging on to Twitter. It's like the final days of Rome on there at the moment, but I am there, and it's Chris PHNX. I am on Twitter. I'm also on Blue Sky, and I'm also on Instagram as well. So please, if you're a Doctor Who fan, you want to follow me, please do. I've also been on a couple of other little podcasts, but not many. It's quite nice to be invited to do this one.
Excellent. Well, we'll have to get you to come back and do something else as well, because this was a lot of fun and great to experience.
Thank you so much.
Next time, it's Quark Mania. I'll be joined by Joe Ford and Fraser Gregory, and we'll be looking at the TV comic Quark Stories and the Big Finish story, Dominant Species, also featuring the Dominators and the Quarks. Until next time, I've been Dylan.
And I've been Chris.
And this has been Doctor Who, Too Hot for TV.
Too hot for TV.
Could you just give me 1 sec? I think someone's at my door. Sorry.
No problem. That's all right.
There was nobody there. I think it must have been the neighbours banging around. But,
I thought you were going to tell me you've now won the postcode lottery and you're off.
Yeah, I've got spent it all on Big Finish.
Oh, that's good. You could get me the last 2 years.